see if it's focused on our faces. Because if it's blurry the whole time, that could be off. Well, welcome to our mentoring meeting. It's kind of a training I wanted it to be more dialogical, so feel free to interact with us just because it's a really personal thing. So my name is Chad Harrington.
And Leslie Grody.
So Leslie has worked with Nations Ministry for a really, really long time. She's actually a board member, but she's been involved in the trenches, and she's been involved she's been involved with clients directly for years and years, more experience than I have. So she also tutors on Wednesdays. So all of that kind of combined, I thought she would be great for not only this meeting, but she's going to be the coach for half of the mentors. So we're each going to help guide you guys personally as you guys mentor these students. So I just wanted to lay out the main purpose of the mentoring program and then go into the details. And again, feel free to interject, to ask questions and give us comments. And so the primary purpose of our mentoring program is relationship. And it's specifically a relationship of love. And so the way that manifests itself will be helping these students to manage conflict in love, to learn about culture in love, and to even grow in their academics or their classes in love. So you guys have a great opportunity. This is an incredible program, just to love on these kids. So if you just do one thing, just love them. That's all we really care about in the context of a relationship. And so this is a new thing. Nations Ministry has never done this before. And so it's exciting, but it's also new. So I'm learning and along with you. But I don't think it's really that hard to love on these kids. So I think we'll be all right. And we just created this because I saw not just an academic need, and not separate from their academic need, but they just crave relationship with the tutors. And so this is an opportunity just to hang out. But within that, taking an opportunity to invest into these kids, into something that matters more than just how they do in school, although it will help them in school. It'll help them to develop as a whole person, which is my goal for the entire program, is that they would become mature men and women in this season of their life, that we would help them in this season of life. So we wanted to lay out some general parameters, give you guys some examples of what you guys can do with the kids, and then go into detail about conflict, culture, and classes, and that's it. So Leslie's going to start out with something that she's not only good at, but very experienced at, in terms of learning what works and what doesn't work, and it's communication with the students and with the families. So.
And it's really hard not to communicate with the students, because that's easy when you're one-on-one. But when you want to plan an outing or plan, a get-together, a lot of them don't have telephones, or they have a cell phone, but it's their mother's and they're at work, or they don't. It's difficult. So as if you can talk to them as much as you can when you're with them about planning, and send it, write it down and send it with them, and find out if there's a way that you can get in touch with them. Some I'm sure are easier than others. And then also let them know how they can call you, because they might, get access to a phone for just, a little bit, but they could call you. As well as stress to them that, let you know if something comes up, and something could come up. If so, you don't just go and not know what's going on. And then they're a way for you to communicate with them if something happens with you. I mean, you're sick, or there's things that could come up. But I think probably just to be able to communicate with them when you've got them one-on-one as best you can, because that's your best time, and send send something home with it written down for them to do. I'm not sure, do they keep calendars?
I don't know.
That might not even be a bad idea.
Yeah.
That might be something that, I mean, you could just make, draw one out yourself, or if you
Yeah.
wanted to get them a calendar.
Well, and one thing that I haven't showed you yet, but we're gonna have for each of the mentors is these little sheets. And this is something that when you pick the student up, you leave it with the parent, if they're there or if they're not there. And it lists your name, your phone number, where you're going, and when you'll be back. So it's something tangible. So you could even, you could do one like beforehand, just give it to the student, but definitely make sure that when you go there, you give them another one. And that way there's a tangible reminder. But like
That's good.
Leslie's had a lot of experience taking one of the students to church every Sunday. Jermaine, and has it always worked out?
You know what? It really does always work out, but we kind of say we're going to talk on Saturday because things change with them, and we've been doing this for like 2.5 years now, and still every Saturday it's kind of like, this is a challenge today. And like, this shouldn't be so hard after this long, but anyway, it does always work out, but.
It's just important to be very clear and repetitive with communication. Even when you're on the phone, like for example, if you call the parents, some of whom may be able to speak English, some may not, to repeat the times that you're going to pick them up. I'm coming, my name is this or whatever, and I'm coming at 3 o'clock for Adeline. I'm coming at 3 o'clock for Adeline. You'll feel kind of goofy doing it, but you'll find out that it'll help just to repeat yourself and just be extra clear.
I just have a real quick
Yeah.
question. Their parents already know that we exist, right?
Yes,
Okay. What's that?
I sent out a notification explaining who mentors are,
Okay.
your name and your number,
Okay.
to the parent. And the only way that you can take a kid out is if they return that back to me. So they not only know about the program, but they know your name.
Okay.
And I give them your number because they'll need to
Right.
contact you for
Okay.
emergencies.
I was just wondering, to what extent they knew.
Yeah, and all the students have been told who their mentor is too. I mean, they were all excited, but when Frederick found out who his mentor was, he leapt in the air repeatedly, couldn't control himself. So,
And I just want to say
Yeah.
something else too, is when you were talking about relationships, so many of them have lots of siblings. And so it's, they really don't have any relationships that are one-on-one.
Mm.
I mean, so even the coming to tutoring is perhaps the most one-on-one they get, just because, there's 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 of them.
and they'll want to come with you.
Yes.
And it'll be hard for you to say, no, you can't come. But it'll be very important because once you're in the car with them, then you'll realize if there were 2 other kids in the back seat, this would be completely distracting. So, and I would only tell the students about one event at a time, because if you say we're going to do this, 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 and this, number one, things could change, but number 2, they'll get confused and maybe just they'll have unrealistic expectations about when and what's happening, and then on top of that, they just might not be able to handle that kind of information. And so just say, hey, this is what we're doing next, And you could talk about ideas and brainstorm, but just one at a time. Then I wanted to talk about safety issues. This is very, very important to discuss because life is very fragile and we can't take it for granted. I actually had an experience this weekend that was a little bit terrifying with the kids, and so I'm hyper conscious about it. So when you take them out, you are like their parent. Middle schoolers don't quite have the capacity to reason through physical dangers yet, all of them, because they haven't experienced all of life yet. There's still things that they don't even know about. So you have to think ahead for them, not just yourself, but for them too. If you're at the zoo, they might, run off somewhere, or they might I just have no idea what it'll be, but be thinking for them, not just for you. And if anything does happen, you know, like where the student or you are in physical danger, not necessarily hurt, but even at risk, and you're in the present situation, like your car breaks down on the highway, call me right away. Like, don't even wait. If you can't get, well, and then call the parent, and if you can't get a hold of either of us, call Chris Lovinggood, and I'll give you all those phone numbers. And then if someone does get hurt, you're responsible to take them to the hospital. And if you do, you know, they will receive them. They have to like take care of them. But then I'll also have their medical information, and we may give it to you as well, but I'll definitely have it. And so call me right away, call the parent, and then call Chris, the director of Nations. And then another safety issue, and this is actually more of a liability issue for you and for us. Never be alone with a student in a house, or if there are people in the house, don't ever be alone with a student in a room, or if it's in a building, alone in a room. Just because there could be accusations. It's just one of those things we have to think about as an agency, and it's not because like we would never do that, do anything. We don't even think about it, but we just have to think about stuff. Someone else could accuse you that doesn't know either of you. So just make sure that there's that you're above reproach in that way. And so we wanted to talk about the nature of gifts and work for refugees. I'll just kind of intro by saying that you guys are mentors, not providers for these kids. So by default, don't give them anything. Now what I don't mean by that is don't buy them anything. You're welcome to buy them ice cream or, you know, entrance to the zoo or whatever it might be, but don't give them anything in addition to that without talking to me first. And probably don't give them anything anyway, even if, you know, I could see a Christmas gift being appropriate, but they're going to ask you guys for things. They will ask you for things, and you're going to have to say no. We've been around the block a little bit.
Well, and one thing too that's confusing is when they came to the United States, they didn't have anything. And so we had to give them everything, you know, they, not just, you know, clothing, but furniture, you know.
Well, because they were
just
in
everything. They were in a refugee
survival mode,
yeah,
basically.
Right, and so, so they're used to us giving them things, but they're very self-sufficient now, and so, but that, you know, they will try.
Yeah.
To.
And it'll be, I've actually bought things for kids.
Well, I have too.
Before I really knew.
Yeah, I mean, and.
They're good at asking.
You know, and and there's some things that, for instance, when they start in the spring, when they go on college trips, it costs $30 or $40 for them to go on these trips. And so some families have more than one child here at Lee, and so that's a significant amount of money, you know, and so they'll ask you, you know, will you pay for this, or will you do whatever? And I actually had several last spring ask me, and, you know, just can't.
Well, I love what Leslie did with kind of this challenge. I forget if it was the same thing that you're talking about now or a different thing, but when you got 3 of the students to work for you at your house.
Yeah, it was in the spring, and so there were 3 boys, and I said, you know what? If you all want to come on a Saturday and help me do some work in the yard, you know, then you can work and you can earn the money for the trip. And so, you know what? They were thrilled. I mean, they were so excited, and you know, I was kind of worried about the communication thing because I just told them, okay, I'll pick you up Saturday at 9 o'clock. But they were all ready. They were all at the same house, you know, because they live in the neighborhood. They were all there, and they came, and they worked really hard. I mean, I worked right there with them, but, you know, you gave them instructions. They did everything. They didn't complain, and they were so excited and really so proud at the end that they had their $30 and that they had earned it. So, you know, anything like that you might can think of, or, you know,
Yeah.
sometimes that's, more appropriate if they're looking for, some money for a specific something, say, well, let's figure out how you can earn this money, or we
Yeah.
can earn this money together, or.
Well, because sometimes their parents don't have the same work ethic paradigm that Americans have. Number one, because a lot of the Burundi clients have been refugees since 1972, and most of our students are Burundian. So their parents didn't learn traditional work ethic. Number two, in general, the students haven't worked at all. So they're normal people who are in middle school who have never worked for a living. So they don't know what it means to earn money or to buy things. So when they do ask you for things, use it as an opportunity to teach about how money works and how work works. Because their parents may not even know how to articulate that for the American context. And so it could even have a tangible result of having them help you with work around the house, if that's fun, like raking leaves or something. But the main thing is to just not give them things, because that will only perpetuate the cycle of poverty. There's this book called When Helping Hurts, and Leslie and I talked about this, and she said you should recommend that to all the mentors. And so if there's one resource that you guys can buy to read, it's called When Helping Hurts by Brian Fickert and another author. And it's how to engage with the poor without actually hurting them more than when you started working with them. And so the paradigm is this, that if you see people as primarily materially poor and that you can fix them, kind of having a God complex, you can fix them. Those two things together are the recipe for a disaster. Because number one, it's not true. Poverty is way deeper than just physicality. You can give somebody everything, but if they don't know how to work, or they haven't changed their mind about the way life works, they're going to remain in poverty. But number two, you're going to become more proud, not knowing that your material gifts to the poor aren't actually helping them, but you feel good. And so you'll be proud of what you've done, because you tangibly can say, I gave this money, or I gave them this. But in the end, there's shame involved on their side sometimes. For example, if you gave an entire family all the Christmas presents because the parents couldn't, that would embarrass the parents. That the Americans come in and they're the favorites and the parents are embarrassed. There's actually a story in the book where every Christmas this church would do that, and the dad would leave the room every time they came every year because he was ashamed. So I recommend that book, but I also just wanted to kind of give you the general paradigm of the book to kind of tell you why we're saying don't give things away. It'll also make you become something that you're not, which is this provider, but you're a mentor. So do you guys have any questions so far about just the general parameters?
Well, this may be skipping to something
Go for
I'm
it.
doing out of line, but when you
That's
said
fine.
it just made me think. A lot of times, especially Christmas, they don't do Christmas like we do commercial Christmas. They don't understand all, it just is, well, they had do Christmas like it should be, but they don't understand a Christmas tree and presents and stockings and all that kind of stuff. And you kind of have to, I think it's very refreshing to say, maybe give them a gift of something that they need, but not lavish, just
Yeah.
lots of gifts, or that, they don't really understand Halloween. They don't understand about trick-or-treating, or but a lot of American things in our culture they don't understand. And so,
Yeah.
it's real, and they're very, it's very important in their families that they continue their traditions and culture. And, a lot of them wear, traditional clothes, mostly the parents, but, traditional African clothes at home, and so, I don't know, I've always kind of thought twice about any time there's any sort of, or Easter, or anything that's kind of our American culture,
Yeah.
because I don't know, I think it's nice that they don't understand,
Like
and they
Christmas
go,
consumer.
and they just say, well, on Christmas, I don't understand. Don't you just go to church? No matter what day it is, you should just go to church. That's right. But no, it's not what we do always. But
Yeah.
anyway, I just thought of that when you said Christmas.
I think
because
that's good too, and we'll get more into that a little bit at least, or maybe we can just cover it now. But part of your job is to teach American culture, not in the sense like teach them like awful consumerism or like how to be greedy for money or anything like that that might be negative sides of our culture, but like just filling them in, like this is why things happen. But then I think you were kind of articulating it to learn their culture too, because it's very important not only that they speak English and their native language. Well, it's not only important that they speak English, but also their native language. And then by encouraging them to talk about it, they're being able to voice their story. And in the very act of talking about it, they're remembering their culture. So, we wanted to give you guys some examples, but I wanted to hear what you guys have already thought about for like the actual events. So before I ask that though, I just wanted to kind of create a paradigm for what the actual event should look like. And it's okay if you guys shout out things that aren't this, but I did want to say that we need to keep it very simple, relational, and if you can, physical. So simple in the sense that it doesn't have to be extravagant, like we'll go here and then we'll go here and then we'll eat dessert there, and just like one thing. I mean, if you need to do two, that's fine, but like think about just one thing that's relational, where you can actually interact with them, not just like sit in front of a screen. But then also on top of that, if you can include some kind of physical activity, whether it's a walk or playing in the park, that's great. So what are some ideas that you guys have, I know what they are, but I wanted to hear from you guys personally what you guys already planned on doing.